Hi everybody, welcome to this t-shirt printing video. I get quite a lot of questions in the comment section about dark t-shirt transfers and how I apply them and what actual materials and products I use. T-shirts for transfers for dark t-shirts come in various different qualities. If you've probably looked on the suppliers list on eBay, for example, in all the different shops there, you'll see a wide range of prices, and there's also a lot that are imported from the Far East which are unbranded, and they may only last sort of 1 or 2 washes before that they start to deteriorate. So the papers that I've used for a very, very long time now. They've got a proven track quality, they last well in the wash, and although the technology is slightly different for darker t-shirt transfers than for lighter t-shirt transfers, in other words, they tend to be a bit more heavier on the surface to the touch. Transfer papers for light t-shirts are a lot more advanced, and they are sort of a bit more stretchable, and also got more of a natural texture. So darker t-shirt transfers will always be a bit more heavier. So I try to keep a dark t-shirt transfer for a small area, and if I need to do writing, because of the way that we have to cut them out, which I'll show you in a second, I normally apply writing separately on using a clothing vinyl. Here is basically how we get our transfer papers. Again, very similar to a normal sheet of A4 paper. The difference being that there is 2 layers to this. This is a thin white film on basically a backing paper, and it just literally sits into your printer. You print on it, and then you put it through your craft cutter and you cut it out. So I've just pulled up Silhouette software here. So I'm just going to place that A4 sheet of paper in our Epson 1500W printer here. This is the one I use. This has got a CIS system fitted to it, which is basically a bulk ink system. And if you look at my previous videos, you can actually see how I installed that onto the Epson CIS system. I use basic dye-based inks, which I've used since 2006. And I've never ever had any problems with them at all. You go to t-shirt forums, you go to look online, they will all tell you pigment inks. One of the biggest problems you'll get with using, especially if you're using like an Epson printer, inkjet printer, they've got very, very fine nozzles in the print heads, and they can tend to clog up with pigment inks if you're not using them on a regular basis. And not only that, if you put your printer through its maintenance cycles, Epsons can tend to waste quite a lot of ink. This is my waste ink bulk ink tank here, which I've got fitted. I don't know whether you can see that. I'll try and zoom in for you. But that is actually half full with waste ink at the moment, which would normally be deposited inside your printer. This is just an add-on device which you can add to a printer like this, and that saves your printer basically being blocked up and corroded. That doesn't mean to say that the counters that go on inside the printer will still come up after a period of time. For example, I've had this probably about 1.5 years, this Epson 1500W printer from brand new, and in that 1.5 years, I think it was just before Christmas, which was about a month ago, it come up and it wouldn't print out anything. The 2 indicator lights were flashing alternately on it, and it basically said that it was beyond its serviceable life, or the ink pads were beyond their serviceable life. Now, with my older type of printers, when I had the Epson R1800 printers and also below, you was able to go online and download a software utility that would allow you to reset the ink counters in the printer and thus keep the printer working. You can't actually do that. Epson have sort of wised up to that now, and they only allow this software out to reset the printers to their registered dealers. So I had to phone up Epson, find a local dealer where I live, and disconnect the printer, physically take the printer in, and he charged me £10, which is probably about, I don't know, $18 if you're in the USA. I don't know what it is in euros, probably about 13, 14, 15 euros. And I had to take the printer in for them to reset, because they basically hire the software out from Epson, being a main dealer, and they obviously charge you. So printer's now back working again. That isn't the problem. But anyway, getting back to where we was. So I've just pulled up an image on the screen here, and it's just basically of a snowman. And this snowman what we done, we took the snowman image into Photoshop first, and we put this green background behind it. And the simple reason why we done that was because that we was actually putting this image on a green t-shirt. And if we was using the red t-shirt, we would change this background image to red. This is an A4 sheet of paper, as you can see here. This is our cutter sheet, as you can see there, what we normally have when we stick our A4 sheet of paper on. This comes with the Silhouette Cameo cutter, as we have here. So once we've printed out our image on our transfer paper, we will put that transfer paper on there in that orientation. Let's take that cutter sheet off there. As you can see, the arrows at the top there. 1, 2, 3 registration marks, as you can probably see on the page there. And we'll feed it into our Cameo cutter with that orientation, as that's showing you the way to put it in the cutter. So I'll leave that for a minute. So as I say, the background colour we've already done in Photoshop. This image has got the cut line around it. We've just basically gone around the outside and put a cut line. There are ways to do this in the software where it automatically puts the cut line round, but sometimes it doesn't do it very accurately, and you have to go in and alter. And for the sake of a simple shape like this, all we use is the simple tool there called what I call the bow tie tool. And basically once you click on that, you can take your mouse and you can go around the edge, or just outside the edge on the green, for example. I mean, let's just zoom in there. If I just zoom in, you can probably see, where are we? Can you see the red line all the way around there? A very thin red line. Now that's what we actually, you would basically put a little marker there. You would put a click by just clicking down on the left mouse button and click, and then work your way basically around, click, click, click all the way around the snowman until you come back to your starting point, and then just put the mouse over the last one that you clicked on, and that will create this cut line going all the way around. And as I said to you, the reason why we've got it on a green background is that this slight green background will show on the green t-shirt. So we're quite happy with that. I've just zoomed in there, as you can probably see. And you do that with that little bow tie tool, as you can see there. There are ways up here in the software where you can automatically put a cut line, but we're not going to bother with that. That's just a simple way to get you started using the Silhouette Cameo software that comes with the actual cutter itself. So I'm just zooming out there now. So we've got our basic image and our cut line on the page. Now your page settings and your cut settings, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, if we go to the cut settings window, which is the cut settings, as you can see when I hover the mouse over the top corner there, that's the cut settings. This is when you're first designing your image. I don't need to set this now in this software because we've already done this image. Once you've done it once and you've saved it as a Silhouette Studio template, which this one is, you don't need to alter any of these settings. But I'll just show you the cut settings again because people are very inquisitive about what cut settings we use. You click on the cut settings window, that pulls up the cut settings page. We use standard, we use the cut style, just the cut there. The fabric or material, the material type, we use from the drop down menu, heat transfer material smooth, which is that one there. We've got the blade type and ratchet blade settings. This is telling you that blade should be on number 2. There's the speed that's already set. There's the thickness that's already set. And what some people tend to do is use the double cut method. In other words, they put a tick in that box there, and what it will actually do, it will cut round twice just to ensure that it has gone round. I mean, technically speaking, if you're doing it on transfer paper like this, it's a very thin material, you don't really need that on. But that's that anyway. And just scrolling down the page there, all we would do would be to send that to the Silhouette. We don't want to do that yet because we want to print it out. But once you've actually saved this document, as I've shown you before in our other videos, once you've saved this document, you'll have this, once you open it up, all these would normally be set, so that's not a problem. So anyway, because we want to print this image out, we're just going to send this to the printer. We're only going to print one copy. Now people are also interested in what printer settings I use. If I go to my preferences window here, all I used is the text and image. Some people say use the photo settings. Some people say use the best photo settings. Well, I'm sure you can see, if I just shut it up again, it's a basic solid color image you don't need photo settings for that. All you're doing is wasting more ink. So the printer preferences which I use is text and image. I use Epson Photo Quality Inkjet paper type, and this is obviously A4 on the sheet. So I'm not going to alter none of that. All my cutting is done on that. That's the same printing I use for printing out documents or transfers on this computer. So I'm just going to press the print, and we'll go over to the printer and we'll watch it print out. Now, one thing to notice here is that there's my dye-based ink in there, as you can see, and that is just pure basic dye-based ink. It's the cheapest stuff I can get on eBay. It comes in bottles like this, which is a basic clear plastic bottle, and this actual company I've been buying this from years and years now on eBay since 2006. I've recently started putting in their adverts, ink not suitable for t-shirt and mug printing. Well, as I say, that I've been on to the chap who actually sells this product. It's the same product as he's done, but he sells other inks and stuff like that, and apparently he has to put that on there for copywriting reasons, that little disclaimer. So it's the same ink I've been using. I still use this now, and he doesn't actually list it as 1500W ink. When I go to his website, eBay shop, I actually put in Epsom 1400 dye ink, and it comes up. It's the same basic ink, so it's a 6-colour setup, and that's what I actually use. Right, again, out comes the dye-based inks, as you can see there. Now, if you ever get any, I get loads of emails from people saying, oh, yeah, I'll come out, it's a bit wishy-washy, or the banding's not, it's got banding on it. Well, that is a printer problem. That's nothing to do with the transfer papers or the inks you're using. If you can see this actually coming out now, these inks are lovely and bright and vivid on this transfer paper. There's no banding at all. We use this printer on a regular basis. In other words, it's being used every day for printing here, and we also print out our PayPal receipts and our other stationery to run in our business. So this one ink does everything all in one. It prints the same inks for the white transfer paper, and I'm sure you'll see there that the definition is absolutely lovely. Good colour separation between all images. So if I just turn that round. So this basically is our transfer paper, and I'm going to get as near as I can without this camera blurring. We've got the registration marks, one there obviously, and one down the bottom there. So what we'll do now is we'll apply this to the backing carrier sheet. We'll turn the Silhouette Cameo on. We'll apply this sheet of A4 dark t-shirt transfer paper to our carrier sheet, making sure we put it on pretty straight, as you can see, like that. Now, a lot of people also say that their carrier sheet loses its stick after a while. Yes, that does happen, and basically all we do is we buy this art and craft adhesive. This 400ml tin lasts an absolute lifetime, and we just give it from a pretty good distance. We give it a good spray, not over the transfer obviously, over the actual sheet, and that again replaces the tackiness. So that's what we use just to do that. So again, once we're on there, as you can see the orientation, we put it into our craft cameo under there, and we basically just hit the enter button, and that pulls it in. All we need to do then is to send this to the Silhouette and press the start button there, and you'll see that start to locate the registration marks. And let's let that go through its cycle. So as you can see there, everywhere through the cutting line, it's just going around the outside. So we'll have a little thin border of green because that's the way we've designed it. And as I said, if that was a red t-shirt this was going on, we would put a red background there. And all you would do is have that image in Photoshop and then just recolour the image on the background in red. So there we go, that's done now. Now, before you actually take it out, I do get a lot of people say, oh, but it's not cut all the way through or whatever. Well, as you can see, I've left it in the machine at the moment. Now, in this situation, what I'm going to show you is that the cut line is there. Now, normally, as I say, if it was a white t-shirt paper, you'd cut all the way through the paper as well as the thin transfer layer. And then you just pull this away and you're left with just the shape. And then you've got to separate with the black t-shirt or dark t-shirt transfer. you've got to separate the thin film from the backing of this paper here. Now that can present a problem because it's quite fiddly to do that. So an easy way to do that is just to get your pick tool, one of your pick tools like you would normally use for weeding out vinyl. Just grab hold of the end of the actual transfer paper itself, and you can actually get underneath it. And I don't think you see that. I'm actually just pulling up the thin film and separating it, and you watch, look, the shape. I've actually cut through, as you can probably see there, I've actually cut through the actual, just the thin film, just this thin white film. This is the actual transfer itself. And as you can see, the shape is cut out, and I've just lifted it off of the paper. And there you go, like that, look, all the way around. Now I'm going to just press the enter button to get it out of the cutter. And I can just then weed out all of the old transfer paper that we don't need, and just leave myself with our image. There it is there, that's transfer. And that is the image cut out, and as you can probably see there, I've got the little light green line, which doesn't really matter too much on the green t-shirt that's going to be applied to. We still need, because this is a dark t-shirt transfer, you need to apply this face up. And all you need to do then is basically to lift this image, and all you do is you get your pick tool just underneath the edge. You've got to be very careful when you do this. If you don't do it correctly, you will actually just scratch the ink off of the surface. And literally just lift up, and then you'll be able to pull the transfer paper off, as you can see, which I'm doing there. Now that is the transfer off of the transfer paper, and that is the image which you then have to lay onto your t-shirt or garment like that. Right, here we are over at the heat press again. You've seen this many times. We're up to temperature for the type of transfer paper that we're using at 190 degrees. And I've just got a little child's green top here, as you can see, and I've just got it on heat press just to do a quick pre-press as we normally do. And I'm not even going to press it down very hard, just for a few seconds. That just takes the moisture out of it and makes sure that we've got no problem with pressing our transfers. Now, for those of you who are just starting off in the business, I keep pointing out in my other videos that I've done on the heat presses that you have to have a good heat press. A lot of people are going to eBay, seeing multiple combinations of heat presses that do basically 2 or 3 things, like you pull attachments off and put a mug press or some other thing on there. They're normally not very good. This is the most important part of your heat press, which is your heat plate. That needs to be a constant temperature all the way to the edge. So you get a temperature gun. In fact, I'm going to do it again. Here's my digital thermometer, as you can probably see there. And I'll go to the edge of the heat press. There we go. So I'm just going to take that reading there. That's the edge of the heat press, which is coming up at 192 degrees. And if I go to the center of the heat press and measure the temperature right in the center, and as you can probably see there, that temperature is 191 degrees. So all across my plate is a constant temperature. And you need that because transfer papers need the complete heat to adhere. A lot of people say they get edges peel up, and that is a problem because you're not getting a constant heat or hot enough heat around the outer edges for the transfer to stick, and they will start to lift. Now, with my type of press, this is what you call a clam press, as you probably know. You lift it up, and a lot of people actually lay their transfer papers on while it's under here. Now, with the dark t-shirt transfer paper, as you know, you have to actually remove it from the backing paper. This is a very thin and flimsy item. And if I laid that on there now, with the heat on, you would find that it would curl up and it would be quite difficult to lay in place. So what I tend to do is basically lay the garment on a flat surface, and lucky enough, I've got one right next to me. We would then put the image on. Let's say, for example, we're going to have this there. And as you can see, the green outline that you can see around there is the same sort of green as the actual garment we're actually going to be pressing. So I've laid that on there like that. What I tend to do then is to get a smaller sheet, lay it over the top. I then fold the arms in, and then because it's a small top, I can lift that directly onto the heat plate, and I'll then unfold and get it basically where I want it to. I'll push the collar, as you know, over the top, and then what we're going to do is pull this down. We're looking for 30 seconds at quite a high pressure, and we're going to be counting down for our 30 seconds. Right, okay, there we go. That's now pressed. Let's just turn that heat press off. I don't need that on anymore. And I'm going to leave that now. This is what you call a cold peel product, these ones. So that means that if a lot of people say, oh, take the Teflon sheet off, and they say, oh, it's starting to lift, or it's not actually adhered properly. Let this product go cold. I'll tell you what transfer papers I use in my t-shirt training DVD. And don't forget that when you actually purchase my t-shirt training on DVD, you also get full email support as well, where you can actually contact me and ask me any questions. So I'll just let that cool off for a little bit. Normally I'll take it over there, but as we're here, I'll just do it here. And this is the cover sheet, which is just going to be removed now. And let's try and get you near to that. And let's take you around the actual t-shirt transfer itself. Now I'm sure you can see there, the colours are lovely and vivid. This is just the transfer paper that we use. We get on well with them, we're happy with it. But the thing, as I said to you, with dark t-shirt transfers, they don't have much stretchability. So we try to keep the image on the t-shirt, or wherever the logo, for example, there, we keep it pretty small, because you know the technology is not quite there for a soft stretchy feel with dark t-shirt transfers. But I'm sure you can see that that's very, very nice and colourful. The colours haven't deteriorated at all, and they're locked into the transfer paper. Now these are basic dye-based inks, as I've mentioned to you before, and if I was going to put any writing on that t-shirt, I would do that in a clothing vinyl as opposed to transfer papers. The difference being is that when you're cutting letters out, if you're using transfer paper, you're never going to line it up with all the individual letters being cut out. So we don't bother doing that. We like to keep an image in a pretty sort of standard image, which has got a simple outline and not too much intricate work, because that just means that it gives you hassle when you're actually going to apply it to your garment. Well, there you go. There's our little dark t-shirt transfer papers that we use. We got on well with them. As I say, it's all, the little line what we put around the outside is all done in Photoshop. If you're looking for a free program very similar to Photoshop, if you're a bit limited with funds or whatever, look at a program called GIMP, G-I-M-P. Now that can be found, I think it's gimp.org, and you can download. It's an open source piece of software, totally safe. It is continually being updated and worked on, and it's very similar to Photoshop, and there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube for how to work GIMP. Don't forget, you don't need to understand how to work Photoshop completely, just like you don't need to work GIMP completely. It's all about doing a few things, making a coloured background, how to change the colour of an image, how to remove the background for an image, how to write text, for example, stuff like that. Simple stuff, and you can learn all that on YouTube. That's not the point of my tutorials, to tell you how to operate certain pieces of software. There's plenty of other tutorials on YouTube for that. Simple dye-based inks, not pigment inks. You can use pigment inks if you want. They cost a bit more money. You don't use sublimation inks for this type of transfer printing. If you're going to be using sublimation for transfer printing, the reason why I don't advocate that as a startup, using sublimation ink, for one, sublimation ink is very, very dear. For two, t-shirts which you sublimate to can't be 100% cotton. They have to have some sort of polyester mix for the sublimation ink to actually adhere to and bond to the actual t-shirt. Sublimation t-shirts normally tend to be a bit dearer as well. So, you know, there's a lot of things there. Transfer papers are very durable, but if you get a cheap transfer paper, it may look like this when you first get it out of the heat press, but once you've washed it 2 or 3 times, you could find it starts cracking, the colours start fading, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a transfer paper. It could be that your heat press isn't heating up the inks correctly to the right temperature and bonding them into the actual transfer paper. Well, anyway, that's a little bit on dark t-shirt transfer papers for you. Hope you enjoyed this little video. Don't forget to rate, comment and subscribe to my channel if you like our sort of videos, and we'll see you again in the next video. Thanks very much for now. See you later.